here's what nobody tells you about being a manager. All that stuff that made you great in your old role might be holding you back. I've been managing high-performing teams for over 17 years now, and I keep seeing the same mistakes tripping up new managers. We're talking the kinds of mistakes that will kill your confidence, frustrate your team, and even put your reputation on the line. In this video, I'm going to break down the most common mistakes that new managers make, why they happen, and what you can do about them. Stick around, because avoiding these can save you months of frustration and awkwardness with your team. Here's mistake number one: trying to continue to be a superstar employee. I mean, think about it. Your entire career, you've been rewarded for doing the work well. Except now that you're a manager, your success depends on other people doing the work well. If you don't change that mindset, you're probably going to burn out. And worse, your team will stagnate and resent you for it. As a manager, it isn't your job to be the top performer. It's to develop a team of top performers. It's like moving from superstar athlete to coach. Your success is now measured by how well your team does. So how do you actually do that? Well, start by setting clear goals. Don't assume that your people know what the priorities are. Spell them out in simple language, and then repeat them. And continue repeating them until you hear your team echoing them back without prompting. Next, you want to eliminate obstacles. If your team is hung up on red tape or missing resources or an unclear process, it's your job to help them work through it. And remember, you can be an obstacle too. So regularly ask yourself, how am I getting in the way? Finally, encouragement over execution. When you see people on your team struggling, you're going to have the instinct to jump in and fix it for them. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Adam, didn't you just say that it's my job to clear obstacles for my team? Well, yes, however, when you start managing bigger and bigger teams, you're just never going to have enough time in the day to fix all their problems. So we need to start building this habit right now. Instead of jumping in and fixing it for them, instead ask, what do you think the next step should be? And then give them the space and encouragement to figure it out on their own. And if they do get stuck, offer just enough intervention to get them moving again and working towards the solution themselves. Now, here's where it can get a little awkward: managing people who used to be your peers. This can be one of the most uncomfortable parts of the transition. However, if you avoid it, the resentment that builds up will end up being much worse. So don't dance around it. Sit down with each former peer and talk openly about what's going to change, what's not going to change, and then work together on setting clear expectations. And this isn't about laying down the law, it's about transparency. You're building trust by showing that you're willing to have the hard conversations up front. I understand how you're feeling. You don't want to sound bossy, and you don't want to lose the friendships that you had with your coworkers. Unfortunately, power dynamics change relationships whether we want them to or not. If you try to stay all buddy-buddy and not set boundaries or expectations, they won't respect your authority. And at the same time, if you try to be all cold and distant, they won't trust you. If you want to navigate a conversation like that, say something like, hey, I know things are really uncomfortable right now. They're feeling really uncomfortable for me too. Some things aren't going to change. Look, I've still got your back, and you can bring anything to me. But some things will change. I'm going to have to set expectations, and I may have to occasionally give feedback. How do you feel about working on that together? Being transparent and upfront about the changes will help smooth things over. Speaking of hard conversations, here's another big one that trips up new managers: conflict avoidance. If you dread tough conversations, you're not alone. I've worked with executives who've been managing for decades, and they still hate them. But they now understand that by avoiding tough conversations, you just make the problem worse. The best place to start is to have regular one-on-ones with your team, to surface issues before they become problems. In these one-on-ones, you want to ask open-ended questions that help you better understand the problem. Open-ended questions often start with how or what. For example, what is holding you back right now? You can also use describe, as in, describe for me how you would improve that process. And you can use why, however, a lot of people find that why feels like an accusation. Here's the difference. What made you add that section to your report? Versus, why did you add that section to your report? The difference is subtle, but the first one sounds a bit more like you're trying to understand the situation. Now, unfortunately, one-on-ones won't help you avoid all tough conversations. So when you do have to jump into a tough conversation, it can be very helpful to use this 3-step formula. Number 1, name the behavior. Not the person, the behavior. For example, I noticed that your last report was turned in 2 days late. Number 2, describe the impact. Make them understand why it matters. Your delayed report delayed the whole project and caused a lot of stress for your team. And finally, set some next steps and keep it future focused. Going forward, how do you feel about providing regular status updates to the team? The bottom line is feedback shouldn't feel like conflict. It's about clarity. You're not getting mad or picking fights. You're helping your team identify problems and come up with solutions. And your team will respect you more for having the courage to say what needs to be said, because behind every disengaged employee is a whole team that is dealing with the consequences. Let's recap what we've covered so far. Stepping into management means going from doing the work yourself to enabling others to do it. We do that by setting clear goals, removing obstacles, and remembering encouragement over execution. It's actually a lot like being an air traffic controller. You're not flying the planes, you're making sure they're moving in the right direction and avoiding collisions. As a new manager, you have to reset your relationships with former peers. Have one-on-ones with them to set boundaries and expectations, and let them know what will and won't change now that you're their manager. And use the 3-step formula to simplify tough conversations: behavior, impact, and next steps. And always remember, you're focusing on the issue and not the employee. If you're finding this helpful, maybe because you've already lived through some of this, you'll want to join my newsletter. I share simple, practical tips that help managers get the most out of their teams. This is battle-tested stuff that you can start using the same day you read it. Links in the description. Go sign up. Now we need to talk about time, because as a manager, you're never going to have enough of it. If you try to be everything to everyone, stuff is going to fall through the cracks, along with your team's trust and respect. And that's if you don't burn out first. Here's the only productivity lesson you really need. We can't manage time. We can only manage priorities. We all get the same number of hours each day. The most successful managers have learned to use them more wisely. Here's one of the easiest techniques. Just make a list of everything that's demanding your time. Label each item as A, only you can do it; B, your team can do it or learn to do it; and C, this stuff doesn't matter right now. Focus all your effort on the A's, delegate all the B's, and then shelf or trash the C's. Now here's a mistake that a lot of new managers miss. It's realizing that you also have to manage up. If you're not on the same page as your boss, your whole team is going to suffer. It's like trying to navigate with the wrong map. None of your team's efforts will matter if you find out you've been going in the wrong direction. So how do you manage up? First, you need to schedule regular check-ins with your boss, not just when there's a crisis. Some organizations have this built into their cultures, but many others don't. If yours is the latter, start pushing to have regular check-ins with your boss, and don't assume that they'll know what these check-ins are for. Come prepared with updates, obstacles, and recommendations. Never just present problems, always bring solutions. If you want to get the most out of these check-ins, they shouldn't feel like extra work for your boss. And after each check-in, make sure you clarify your priorities in writing. Even a simple email that says something like, "This week we're going to focus on A and B, and C is a lower priority," will help your team from being blindsided. And as an added bonus, it makes you look more competent. And last, but maybe the toughest, is managing yourself. Because no matter how good you are, there will always be days where it feels like you're not cut out for this. That voice never goes away, even for senior leaders, but they've learned to act in spite of it. Here's how to manage yourself. Start by normalizing your mistakes. When you mess up, own it. Apologize and learn from it. Your team will respect your humility. Then build reflection into your week. Start asking yourself, what did I do well this week? What could I have done differently? And what did I learn? And as a bonus tip, try sharing these reflections with your team. Maybe even have a Friday reflections meeting. It helps build trust and accountability across the team. Finally, build a network of support. Whether it's a mentor or a peer in your network or a consultant like myself, don't try to carry the burden alone. Think of yourself like a car. If you don't stop to refuel and do regular maintenance, you're going to break down right when your team needs you the most. As a new manager, your goal isn't to be perfect. It's to be intentional. If you can avoid these big traps, you'll be miles ahead of other first-time managers. If you want more practical tools delivered straight to your inbox, sign up for my newsletter, link in the description. And if you're still struggling with the idea of managing your priorities, this next video will help walk you through one of the best priority management systems.